There is interest, so that's good. So before we start, usual, can everybody please, if you can, get onto the Zoom, and if you want the floor, just raise your hand within Zoom. It helps us a lot because it orders everybody nicely, and then we can just call on them. If you cannot get on to Zoom, you can just use your name plate and put it like this, and then we'll call on you. Again, today's session, we are giving preference to non-MAG members. They'll be called on first, and then MAG members will be called on afterwards. Tomorrow and the next day, it's going to be the other way around. MAG members will gain preference. And please just briefly state your name for the record and your organization or stakeholder group that you represent. Thank you. And then with that, I will give the floor over to our chair, Jennifer Chung, please.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone in the room. And of course, good morning, good afternoon, good evening for those of you joining us online. Thank you for coming back and being such a full house after this break. We're going straight into what I think is one of the most interesting agenda items. We're going to be talking about the IGF 2026 overarching theme. So without further ado, I'm happy to pass the mic along to our host country co-chair to share some of the suggestions for the annual meeting, overarching themes, and other items. The floor is now yours, co-chair.
I'm buying time because I'm trying to get onto Zoom. Recording in progress. Okay. But I can't share the screen. Can't share. Can I share on Zoom? I've sent a request.
Make him a co-host or?
I've sent a request.
The next.
I've sent a request. Oh, you're now co-host there.
Okay.
Cool. Thank you. Which one was the theme? Correct. Okay, so we start by other things. Good afternoon, everybody. I need to unmute. I don't have to unmute. So I think we started by kind of having discussions around the visual identity of the visual identity of the forum. We borrowed heavily from the previous IGF. We didn't want to really deviate from that since that seems to be a good place to be. I don't know why it's not doing full screen there. What is that? Oh, okay. That's not up to me, right? That's not up to me. Okay. Yeah, so I think we sort of figure out, so the idea, it's one visual system, 5 elements that we put together. One, I think, is a circuit ring, because you'll understand why this is internet governance, but also we're in the age of intelligence, speaks really about the entire value chain of technology from mine to model. Of course, we have an open center, which means the idea that we need to keep the center open because the center cannot be only for a few countries and a few companies. The only visual identity I think we bring from this, the host is, yes, the colors, 3, red, black, green, but also the patterned bead. If you are non-Maasai, now you know you'll have a logo with some Maasai element of it. The circuit ring, I think I don't have to explain it. For us, I think it represents the internet itself. It's distributed and it's interconnected. The circuit traces, as you know, a circuit board, the links are invisible. So we know they're more embedded in the circuit board. So that's really the visual identity of it. Of course, for us, we express parts around connectivity, interoperability, data flows, and digital networks. I think for us, so the open center, I think, is where we think we convene, where all of us are equals. So we really want to emphasize on that idea of multi-stakeholder model, but based on equality. No country or person or organization is above the other, even when the IGF has transitioned into more permanent forum. And so I think I'll go quickly into the theme, but I think what we chose was all the colors, and the rest basically represents everything else. So that's basically the visual identity. We can share the deck so that you can tear it apart if you wish. I'm trying to save time. Now let's go to the other presentation, which is this is the problem with Zoom. I don't know which is my screen, which is not. I say stop share. Okay. Then we go to the theme and rationale. So I think, Jesus, and I'm supposed to be a techie. So the theme we've chosen, basically, the overarching theme is governing the future of intelligence. In the morning, we made some comments around being bold. We made some comments around focusing on what is at stake today. We think the internet is beyond the internet that was in 2006 when the IGF was founded. And so the boldness of the Internet Governance Forum is actually to govern the future of intelligence. The three kind of sub-themes we think is sovereignty, trust, and the idea of an open internet. And you can see how those three tensions are there, because that is the context we live in right now. We talk about sovereignty, we want to talk about trust, but then we want to talk about an open internet when folks also are challenging the notion of open source in an era of intelligence. So we think we need to be bold and engage on that. So why the theme? I think we think in the age of intelligence, the issue that we have really is governance. Sovereignty, I think, is challenged in many ways because it's being sovereign or being independent, but then in an era that demands interdependence. And yet we need people to have capability to shape their own future. Where we feel there's a challenge, of course, is trust is an all-time low, whether it's about information integrity or whether we trust anything that is on the internet or not. And yet we demand engagement from citizens and the wider public. I think we still believe that from the get-go, an open internet is the foundation of everything. And so that's what we need to focus on in terms of our foundation. As we said, the age, sort of, we're thinking around the world entering this era of intelligence, which takes across the whole idea from mind to model, whether it's AI itself, whether it's data infrastructure, whether it's digital public infrastructure, and the new infrastructures that we're seeing with this cloud computing, emerging tech, which currently drives the internet. So I think, again, we're very clear that this theme also recognizes that this is a fight IGF under its iteration, but looking at Nairobi as potentially that place for an enhanced digital cooperation. But I think also ideally it's important to connect global policy process, but also with practical questions around governance rights, development, and accountability. The three pillars we are suggesting that are interconnected is sovereignty, right? So I come back to that. The capabilities around infrastructure, institutions to shape one's own digital future, but then still within a global framework. We still feel trust is a prerequisite for adoption and public confidence around the internet, whether it's safety, privacy, accountability, rights, and institutional readiness. We think third, that the entire anchor must still be an open, interoperable, and neutral foundation of the internet. We are seeing the risks that are happening, whether it's a fragmented internet or whether countries are deciding to create their own internets. We need to figure out how we still continue to be a connected world. So we continue to overemphasize those three just for the rationale. And as I said, sovereignty should not be understood only as control. I think it actually also means, and for those of you in the morning who are speaking really about Africa, I think for us from the African perspective, sovereignty must be around agency, must be around access, must be around capacity, and the ability for you to set your own norms on standards and rules, but still be part of a global ecosystem. Trust, again, is a prerequisite for adoption, innovation, and public confidence. If you're in Kenya, you know some people have decided even to get off the internet. Yes. So you're talking about a digital divide, but because people do not trust the internet, some people have decided to get off the internet and go offline. So I think it's an issue we have to deal with directly, which is why we think it's important that this theme also covers the other tracks, whether it's the high-level track or the ministerial track, the legislative track, and the judiciary track. I am informed that the parliamentary conversation went very well. I'm sure we will be briefed of that. Third, of course, is where we all spend a lot of our time, an open internet. which is not necessarily open as we think. There are, of course, issues of net neutrality, the issues around fragmentation, platform concentration, because how we access or use the internet is dramatically shifting. How many people today use ChatGPT more than Google? Show of hands. If your hand is not up, you're probably not telling the truth. I don't think people use DeepSeek. Okay. If you're using chat platforms more than AI chat platforms more than Google, raise your hand. Maybe that's a better, you see, maybe that's a better question. Yeah. So again, as I mentioned, so there's platform concentration. So you know who owns those ones, right? East or West, right? There's nothing in the middle. And then, of course, we are seeing restrictive network practices. There's a lot of pressure on the internet being open. Of course, there's unequal access. There's cybersecurity concerns. There's completing models. And because I have my friend here from Total News, there's issues of child safety and online safety for children. So I think it's something that, of course, has a new pressure. So Kenya, 44% of Kenyans are children. So that means we cannot not ignore children. Of course, we think the theme also still connects with the global processes, whether it's the GDC, the YCs plus 20, our renewed mandate, the governance agenda around AI, whether it's the independent panel or the global governance dialogue. And we think also it still also creates a focus on how we need to increase attention on digital development, security, and resilience. So we have made a lot of the case for this, but for transparency, we had 4 more themes that were proposed, so we've just put it there. But we landed on this one. So the first one, of course, promoting digital commons for development, which we think will still sit within sovereignty. The other theme that was proposed was democratizing AI resources, which we still feel it sits somewhere, but it doesn't cover trust or openness. The third one was interoperable AI governance for humanity. We thought it was too AI focused and forgot everything else. Then we settled on the fourth one, governing the future of intelligence, which we think also covers everything else that was proposed. It's more wider, but still within those 3. So I think with that, I rest my case by saying that the future intelligence should not be shaped by all, should be shaped by all countries and communities that use, govern, and depend on digital tech. We cannot just be users or spectators on this conversation. We also must be curators, developers, co-creators, especially if digital technologies or this era of intelligence that depends on this platform for development, for inclusion, and for shared prosperity. The end. That's the theme.
Thank you very much, Co-Chair, for bringing us through first the visual identity, which again, personally, I congratulate that beautiful logo and the meaning behind it. Ties it very closely to the Kenya identity, but the open middle, especially, I enjoy very much. I think all of us will enjoy that too. And the cultural elements, bringing the Maasai back in, that is extremely beautiful to see as well. Thank you again also for explaining, the thought process behind suggesting the governing the future of the intelligence. We really appreciate the dive into the pillars. We appreciate the transparency that you've also looked at 4 different overarching themes and narrowing it down to this one. Now we open the floor for an open discussion. I already see a flag up in the room. I encourage us all also to be on Zoom, again, for the purposes of the Secretariat and myself, just to make sure we capture everyone's flag in the right order. But I already see Mokhtar's flag up, so I will first go to Mokhtar.
Thank you. First of all, I will join my voice to congratulate the co-chair for the good logo. But also I want to just emphasize on 2 or 3 things, very important. One is the overreaching kind of actual logo, if I may say, or should be very global. Should be if somebody sees it, he should, or read it, should understand that there is something happening. Something had happened in terms of moving from commitment we had before to really kind of implementation. And in the same time, once somebody sees it in the next 6 months, it should be for us as a MAG members to be a filter of what we don't want into the program. Should guide us to do these kind of things. Now, since we are in Africa, Africa has specific signs. Green is prosperity, I mean, it's like agriculture Africa. A little bit of gold means prosperity for all of us. Normally, technology is kind of bluish kind of color to put there and here and there. So combine all of that and taking into consideration what has been said, I would recommend a little bit of gold there. A little bit of bluish. I don't know how to put it anywhere. Probably when you put the text, you put it somehow in blue. But in the same time, I'm just trying to emulate Africa by saying Africa, they have an agenda, the Africa we want in 2063. Why don't we say the governance, internet governance we want? Probably that. And I thought about something, I don't know if it's good or not, but governing the digital future we want. Moving from commitment to implementation. With the colors we have and with the filter we have, we probably can come up with something that could be sounding very global and specific to the region too at the same time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mokhtar, for very good suggestions. I also encourage, I'm looking at both the online queue and also the room queue. So trying to make sure I'm capturing this in the right sequence. I think the next sequence is a online or maybe online and on site, and the person is named SuccessBridge. If we could possibly have that person give their name, and I guess the affiliation is SuccessBridge. Please go ahead.
Thank you so much, Adebomi Adeola Kimbo, for the record. And SuccessBridge is a platform for making sure that nonprofits gets to the rural community. Having said that, I'm going into the topic of discussion. Yes, I'm intrigued about the logo. I appreciate it. And to be sincere, I see a lot of a Kenyan pattern, which I love so much. And Kenya is global, so I accept it. However, I would agree with the first speaker to add a touch of gold and blue. And having said that, I move into the circles. We always have a distinction when we speak about continents. We say the global south, which is to refer to a certain part of the continent. And I want to strongly believe the IGF 2026 is a global IGF, not just an African, not just a continental IGF. And having said that, you will notice that at the center of the logo is a circle. While not being biased about what it may look like, and when you take out the circle with the two sticks above it, you also notice that there is no way you can move from the other side of the aisle from the left side of the aisle to the right side of the aisle. That is more or less like saying we embrace division, which we do not. So if we could have a door that could cut across and allow a free entry and free exit, it would make a perfect symbol for governing the future of intelligence. And I haven't stated the word governing the future of intelligence. I agree again with the last speaker. We've been speaking about internet governance for years. I have facilitated very more of internet governance schools here in Africa, and I have been part of those outside Africa. And I have noticed that there's this particular word that comes up every now and then. And so Fortunately for us in Africa, we've been able to start something called Digital Space for Digital Governance. So take out that word digital. The word digital may become useful here because when the theme stands on its own, which is governing the future of intelligence, it backs for questions of what sort of intelligence. And some of us in the human rights community has agreed that whatever it is, I'll take that again. In the human rights ecosystem, we believe my human right is my digital right. So there's a difference between the two words. And internet governance should be talking more to the internet. And so I would advise that I also agree with the last speaker that says governing the future of digital intelligence. Yes, human intelligence will always rule digital intelligence. Like the presenter said, while some people are using chat and some people are using Google, their personal intelligence will still build whatever sort of digital intelligence we decide to use. And on that note, I rest my case and pass back the mic. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Adevomi, for your suggestions and your contributions. I do note that, as Chengetai mentioned, we are prioritizing listening to the community first. So I will take this advantage to first go to Blessed Barak. Then I will go to the person in the room with the flag up. I think it's the Association of Freelance Journalists. And then I'll go to Angela. So first to Blessed Barak.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, for giving me this opportunity to speak again on behalf of all the children. I believe the IGF is not only for the children in Kenya, but actually it's holding every child across the globe. So what I would like to say is that we children are part of this internet. We use the internet, we use the AI chatbots, we use Google, so we are a big part and the number is growing. The more users are coming to use the internet as the children, so we are a big part. And we still don't get a chance to be involved in policy making, in development of these social media platforms, or maybe AI or internet platforms that also impact us. So we need to be involved so that we can also know what we are going to incorporate that is child-friendly for all the children. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Blessed Barak. I think your contributions here are very well noted, and I will assume that you think that the themes that have been proposed, especially the overarching theme, does match what, I guess, Kenyan children, I guess, global children, the community of do hope to see. So thank you very much for your input and contributions. Next, I will go to the Association of Freelance Journalists, please.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair and Co-Chair. Thank you, Pan Ambassador, for that great presentation. It really reflects how Kenya, we are intertwined. And in the spirit of unity and collaboration, I believe this is an opportunity for us to be able to showcase what to the global audience, what Kenya and what Africa, the rest of Africa has to give. I do love the circuit, and like Mokhtar's mentioned about the colors. Yes, I guess we can try and look at the colors, but also just giving the global look, the global outlook of the global IGF and the spirit of multi-stakeholderism. I don't know where it can feature in either sovereignty, trust, and open internet. I don't know if we can say sovereignty, trust, multi-stakeholder, and multi-stakeholderism instead of open internet, just to capture the grounding and foundation of IGF.
Thank you very much for your input and contributions. We take that very seriously, and we take well note. Now I think we can move on to the queue. Angela, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for co-chair as well. My name is Angela Wibawa. I'm a MAC member representing the technical community. Apologies that I can't be in Nairobi at this moment. Really looking forward to meeting everyone at the next opportunity. So my first reaction on the design, I love the design. I think it looks great. I have no objection to it. It helps that the color theme is along the line of something that I really love. So good job on that. In terms of the theme, my first reaction when I look at it was, wow, this is very government centric. But the more I look at it, the more I feel like this will attract governments whom we have not yet to attract into IGF. So I thought it's good. However, I would like to strongly suggest if we are to go ahead with this theme, we will need to properly scope the theme and make sure the scope is clear. Because within the theme, there's a lot of loaded terms: governance, intelligence, sovereignty, trust, open. Many governments, many jurisdictions, many territories, many markets define them differently. Different stakeholders sometimes define them differently. So therefore, to avoid any prejudging or avoid any unnecessary argument, we shouldn't prejudge the outcome. We should be open to discussion and essentially not predetermine the solution. But I think it's a very interesting theme, definitely relevant. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Angela. Thank you also for reminding us to scope well, and I think that's probably also shared throughout the inputs that we've heard so far. I see two hands that are coming from the community. So Sophia, if you allow, I will first go to Emmanuel, then Wendy, and I'll come to you after Wendy. So Emmanuel, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you. Emmanuel just raised a hand on my behalf. So in introduction, my name is Andrew Mogambi. I represent my startup called TechCycle Kenya. So currently I'm an emerging AI researcher. And one thing that has really stood out for me is I haven't kind of got what is the ethical philosophy behind the internet governance. And since I come from an AI research perspective, I was asking like, so are we leaning into Western ethical philosophies or African ethical philosophies? For example, Ubuntu. I'm kind of curious to see if this is actually being implemented. Yeah, only that.
Yeah, and so I think I've been asked to respond to that. I think, and part of why I think, and this is sometimes when Kenya becomes interesting, right? Let's understand that the theme cannot be prescriptive or descriptive. I think we need to do the work, and we try to create a rationale of why we arrived at that. And understanding it's a global event, and for the first time in this iteration, we have to be careful that as much as it's in Kenya and in Africa, it still must be global. So where I will request is now in the sub-theme, subtopics, these specific aspects really come out strongly. Because the theme is not the summit. The theme is not IGF. The IGF is in the content. So my sense is that, and Winnie, this is where also I respond to you. That's a value. It's not a theme. Multi-stakeholderism is a value. It's how you process, it's how this process operates. So my sense is that, and if you look at our previous presentation in terms of how we envision even putting together the local host committee, that value is implemented. So we don't have to say it. It's there. I think where we need to call out is when we don't do it. I think for us now, you even have my friend here, Barak, in the room. So I think I have a sense it's believe me, it's there, especially when you talk about sovereignty. That sovereignty, Latin America will define it differently. Kenya or other African countries will define it differently. But where you've seen we have been very specific is it means that even when you're expressing your sovereignty, you have to express it in the context of interoperability and interdependence. So our Ubuntu must connect with the Indian chakras, must connect with New Zealand. So I think for me, that's where we need to understand that this is why this is IGF, that your values should not supersede somebody else's values, that your sovereignty, yes, is your right, but must find a way to connect with other people's sovereignty. And we've explained that under the pillar 1 of sovereignty.
Thank you very much, Co-Chair, for a very in-depth response and explanation. Really do appreciate that. This is how the queue will go. I will first go to Wendy, then I will go to Sophia, and then Mike Nelson. So Wendy, the floor is now yours.
Thank you. So, honestly, I like the theme. The theme is nice and it's going well with our message. And I was thinking we could add a little of white to show that what we want is peaceful. It's purity and it will aim into something. And I was also asking that, yes, technology affects us in very many ways, and it also affects our mental health as kids and also as humans because it disrupts our thoughts. Most of the time, we're stuck in a matrix and use technology where we go online, we start scrolling through, and you can't get your eyes off the phone because it keeps giving us content, and that also disrupts sleeps for some children and it brings up insomnia. And I was wondering how is there a way that can possibly help us prevent from worsening our mental health as children when we're still young?
Yeah, I think quickly, and remember I mentioned the issue of safety. So again, it'll be in there, but my recommendation is as part of the MAG, can you make sure that comes in when you start to go into the specific topics, that element is not lost because we intend to bring it on. As you know, this is something we did with the First Lady and the G7 presidents on child online safety. And this was a core element of that. So this is part of your public trust element of it. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Co-Chair. And also, Wendy, after this meeting, I anticipate that the IGF Secretariat will be able to publish the open call for proposals, and we absolutely look forward to all of the community proposals and hopefully all of those very important themes, including safety, including mental wellness, including children. All of that is brought in. So I will now go on to the next in my queue, which is Sophia. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Co-Chair, and thank you to Ambassador Tigo for representing the very nice design. I really like it. I'm Sophia Longware. I represent civil society. As I said, I really like the design and the idea of also interdependence and a distributed internet that is represented there, although I think a bit more critically about sovereignty, because it's kind of a contradiction to openness and to trust. So I would really also like to distinguish between governance on the internet and off the internet. And off the internet, the governance shouldn't aim for sovereignty, I think, because that would lead to fragmentation. So yeah, and then the other thing is governing the future of intelligence. I think this sounds a lot like artificial intelligence and like leading up to AI. So maybe this could be a bit more broad about technologies as such. So maybe governing the future of the internet and then maybe focusing mainly on trust and openness. And then also, as others already mentioned before, one could also include multi-stakeholder collaboration into the title. And yeah, as I said, really distinguish between governance on and off.
Thank you very much, Sophia, for your input and contributions. Very well noted. I will now follow the queue. I think it's all from our community. And so the next person I have is Mike Nelson. Mike, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, and thanks for making it so easy to collaborate online. I'm calling from Washington, D.C., where I work for the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace. But more importantly, more than 10 years ago, when I was at Microsoft and Cloudflare, I was a member of the MAG. So I understand how important it is to get the theme right, and particularly get the sub-themes right. I love the logo. I love the color scheme. My problem with the overarching theme is that it has the word governing in it, not governance, which can include standards, industry collaborations, as well as government action. It says governing. And so the focus will be seen by many people as what governments need to do. And I think you will scare away a lot of industry people, a lot of people in the consulting world, people who could contribute a great deal to this discussion. So I know it's a radical change and we're late in the process, but shaping the future of intelligence would be something I would support a lot more, and I think would get you a much larger group of participants. The other thing I think on the sub-themes, two of them are great: open internet, trust, but sovereignty, again, is going to scare away half, maybe 2/3 of the people who should come to this conference. What you're really talking about is autonomy, letting people have choices. Sovereignty refers to sovereigns, kings, presidents. That's not what the focus is. And I know that most of the people talking about sovereignty here aren't talking about that. But the word will be assumed to mean how can governments assert control over the internet, rather than how can individuals have autonomy over their life online. So that would be, again, I think we need to think hard about how the word sovereignty will be perceived and how it will affect the kind of proposals sent in. Thank you very much.
Yes. So you wouldn't like the governance of the future of the internet?
That would be that would be a 50% improvement, and I appreciate the amendment. But I think what really IGF does, it doesn't govern, it doesn't set rules. The reason the IGF has been so successful is it has shaped policy both at the international and the national level. And so I think that's why it's so important to get the words right.
I think I'll respond to that. So we did play around with shaping the future of intelligence, but that's a very much private sector word, very much the World Economic Forum track. So we did tinker with that. Secondly, we also tinkered with the idea that the current IGF is not the IGF of last year. IGF of last year did not have a permanence. This has a permanence. And we did mention in the morning that potentially we need to be a little bit bold. And you have Kenya that is backing the boldness that you really, no, seriously, I have a president who says be bold, right? So why can't we talk about governing of the internet? And remember, this is coming from an event being held in the Global South. We've never been part of the governance or governing of the internet or AI. And I speak that from experience. I've been the only one in almost 20 of those spaces, including being invited. So potentially, I also request you to think wider of how we need to shift the narrative. Secondly, when it comes to sovereignty, I agree with both, but the current context of especially countries in the Global South, the word they're using is sovereignty, not autonomy. Autonomy means you also have the means of production and you have the capabilities. But sovereignty in this way means you protect what you think is dear to you, yet you can also have collective sovereignty. You cannot have collective autonomy. And for us, collective sovereignty, for example, very practically means sharing of digital infrastructure, sharing of compute. When we say autonomy means you assume we have our own compute. We don't. And not all
I
of our
don't assume
countries
that
have
at all.
compute. No, I'm not saying you
that at
assume.
all.
I'm looking at the word, not you. Right? So this is more broad, not just percentage. Anyway, I'm just explaining the thought process, just trying to explain it. But this was supposed to be a listening session. Just thought I'd explain.
Well, if I can add one thought, I'm glad you considered the word shaping, but I'm surprised that you dismissed it because another organization has used it. If you choose the right word, you get all the people who come to the World Economic Forum. You get all the people who have come to the AI Safety Summits, which is a very impressive group, and you get the people who have come to the IGF. If you say governing, it's going to seem a very narrow, very focused discussion of what governments need to do. And that's
January.
not.
I think it's fine. And just to mention that I'm actually one of the leaders in the AI Safety Summit, and they're all coming. So again, it's also understanding who's hosting the event. I think part of what Kenya can do is convene unusual players. So for now, let's leave it there, and let's say we'll explore all the suggestions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mike, for your very thoughtful input and comments, especially on word choice. Thank you also, Co-Chair, for explaining the reasoning behind it. You see, it's a back and forth and a dialogue, but there is also a queue. And I see that we do have 3 hands in the queue. I will go in this order because we've already heard once from Adevomi. So if you bear the indulgence, I will first give the floor to Gareth, and then I'll go to Avri, and then I'll come back to you, Adevomi. So first, the floor goes to Gareth.
Thank you. My name is Gareth Sunday, speaking from Total News. So my question is, if we were to measure the success of a child in any informal settlement in the world, what will meaningful, intelligent governance look like? Because I think we are here to discuss. So if you could give us a dream, because we build from a dream, just from a simpler perspective, so that any child in the world can understand that the world is watching over us in terms of internet. Everyone is on Instagram, TikTok. Everyone is using ChatGPT. I have everything pinned on my chat here. So I think if Ambassador, you could just give us success on a simpler perspective, I would really appreciate.
So as Baraka would tell you, see, I operate around these kids a lot. So this is a trick question. My suggestion is this, because you are here, a vision cannot be mine. The vision has to be yours, right? So my suggestion is, as we continue to issue the call for proposals, I think at some point, whether it's on the website or whether it's on the materials, that between Baraka and you and a lot of these kids, if you can even craft a paragraph or 2 of this future you imagine, because I cannot imagine, and I don't assume any of us want to imagine your future. And so I think for me, that's my challenge to you. And as hosts, we will ensure that that narrative is clearly articulated. Thanks.
Thank you, Co-Chair. I think we can have a shared and collective vision once we have all this input and a shared and collective dream going forward. I think that's where we're trying to get to. Now, I will pass the floor over to Avri. Avri Doria, the floor is yours.
Thank you. My name's Avri, and I'm both in the technical community and a member of civil society. I want to comment on 2 things. One is sort of just an aesthetic confusion that I may have. I look at the picture, I find it quite inspiring, leads me to lots of thoughts, but I can't get by the fact that the circle of openness in the middle is not open to the outside. And visually, I don't understand that. I'm not being critical so much, I just visually do not understand its lack of openness. But the issue that I really want to bring up that concerns me is on the governing of intelligence. When I look at intelligence, there's so much intelligence beyond the artificial or perhaps digital or perhaps human or what we have. The idea, and I'm not getting into the notion of is governing the right word or not, lots of good words there. But the notion that we would govern intelligence, all of intelligence, all aspects of intelligence, or are we really talking about governing intelligence systems or some terminology like that? We talked, or somebody talked earlier about scope. And I think getting the scope sort of indicated at the beginning might be useful. Thank you.
Thank you, Avri, very much for very thoughtful input. Perhaps, again, I'm also visually challenged. Maybe we can think of it in 3D, 4D, not 2D. Maybe the openness can be entered into in a different dimension, but I do appreciate very much the very thoughtful input, especially on the word governance, and looking at intelligence too. Thank you very much. I have one hand now online, and now we're going to Adevomi. The floor is now yours.
Thank you. Adibumi Akimbo for the records once again. Avery took it out of my mouth, but if it is possible to show, because people in the chat room actually want to see or view the logo once again. Look at it. The circle, it's a complete circle. And there are two sides to this particular icon or graphics or logo that we're trying to use to push as the team. Is still saying that there's a digital divide. If we are saying that, oh, we have a digital divide we need to address, probably that is in the synopsis or in the scope of this particular thing, I would agree and rest my case. And moving forward, someone proposed that we just keep it real with the word, the future, and remove governance, because it's a big deal. I spoke to you, okay, again, I'm from the civil society, I'm also in the media ecosystem. And these are things we will debate later on. These are things we will use to encourage people to participate. So anything that would create more or less confusion or misinterpretation should be removed or reduced. So if we're saying the future, and we end it with digital intelligence, again, I'm relating back to the approach that Avery is looking at it. It can't be all of intelligence, the future of digital intelligence. And then we can talk about trust and open trust. We can talk about multi-stakeholderism in between the future of digital intelligence. So two things, Madam Chair. One, the logo, and ensuring that the circle in the logo has an entry from the left side of it to the right side of it to show that we are trying to ensure that we have a changed IGF from last year. And that IGF wants to have open doors to ensure that everyone can actually communicate. Yes, I like the narrow perception of governance until Mike exposed it, that it shouldn't just be about governance. I'm in the sector of ensuring the end user also benefits. So I shouldn't be looking at the narrow part. Again, we should look at the team and go for the future of digital intelligence. Thank you, Madam Chair. I rest my case for now.
Thank you very much, Adivomi, for your continued input. I think it's very considered, and thank you for thoughtfully looking at the logo. I think it's for many of us, it's the very first time we're laying eyes on this. So really do appreciate all the input. I'm sure my co-chair is also listening very closely to all of this input as well. I see now 2 hands, now 3 hands. So first we'll go to Wendy, then we'll go to Blessed Barak, and then we'll go to Tamia, and then we'll go to Jordan. So Wendy, please go ahead.
Hi, my name is Tamia Rama. I'm from Total News, and I have a question. What opportunities are there for children to learn about technology and help make decisions about the internet in future? Thank you.
Thank you very much for a very important question. I think with you already being here, I think that's already the first step. I think it's very important to be part of shaping what this IGF that we will have in Kenya in December, what it will look like. And I think a lot of it we've already heard from Barak as well and others. And then the young delegates that are in the room and also online, they've expressed many wishes to see all of this content, to see all of this being discussed at the IGF. So I really do encourage you to continue to participate here. I don't think you'll have anybody giving you the silver bullet or the answer to your question right here. But what you can do is to help us shape the answer that will allow you to get to that place. So hopefully my answer here right now isn't, just it's not an unreal possibility in the future for us to be able to find this collective answer. Now I pass the floor to Barak. Please go ahead.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair, again for giving me this opportunity. Ambassador here has been talking about AI. So, artificial intelligence. We children use AI. He asked us, not only children, also you adults use AI. So he was asking, I believe everybody here uses artificial intelligence in one or the other. So we children use AI in different things that we do. Also in our curriculum, I saw there's a place where we are learning more of artificial intelligence also. So when we use the AI, these AIs, I don't believe most of them have the policies that they're able to acknowledge the rights of the children and do not discriminate the children. So what is IGF and also the government being represented here doing to ensure that we children or the AIs are able to focus and appreciate the rights of the children and not discriminate the children?
Barack, we need to have coffee somewhere. And I think so. Again, on the proposals, and when you talk about child, because if you see how we were framing this, we're framing it around child online safety, which also includes everything you've asked. So basically, I think for me, it will be seeing how we work with you and your constituency to ensure that the children's issues, but also the very specific aspects you're asking are part of it, because you're right, we may miss some of them. But be rest assured, you definitely have somebody from Total News in the host committee. We hope that you'll be participating actively as you are doing today, so that we don't miss your issues. So that I take the host committee part. So from my government part, of course, you have a champion in the president, myself, and the first lady on children issues. We did take that to G7. If you remember, we had a side event at State House, the only event held at State House during the G7, apart from the dinner, but the only serious thing was about children. So I think it's something that you should take heart, that we've also included other first ladies in Africa, but also other G7 heads of state and first ladies of the G7. And this will be a continuation. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Co-Chair, for a really considered response. And you have that promise from the host country, and then you also have the promise from the MAG. You absolutely have, our attention, and thank you for your very considered input. In fact, I'm going to call out a MAG member, Saba, who is the current MAG member, who is very, very involved with a lot of the youth network and the youth initiative. So I encourage you to also connect with her to see how all of these concerns can be also brought through the MAG. This is how the queue will go. I will first give the floor to Tamia, then I'll go to Jordan, then I'll go to Wout, and then Awo, and then I see there's a hand in the room. So I will come to you after the queue there. So first, Tamia, please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Chair, for giving me the floor. Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I hope you can hear and see me well. And my apologies for my voice. I'm a bit under the weather. First of all, the logo, I think it's beautiful. I think the symbolism is great. And with all my respect to my friend Ambassador Tigo, I think you've overestimated how much we are living in a digital world. We all see a maze here and not a circuit board. So I think we still need to catch up with your vision, but I think it's beautiful and it's fine as you've presented it. With regards to the theme and the sub-themes, I want to congratulate the host country for thinking out of the box, for being ambitious, and also for trying to find the right words that are not specific issues, but rather overarching concepts and sort of credos that we want to bring into the IGF now at its new mandate, permanent mandate. So hats off to you for not trying to cram in issues per se, because then we can sit here for a very long time, but actually bringing in concepts that we want to see, whether we're talking about the governance of the internet or artificial intelligence or anything else. I think the concepts that you bring in are the right ones. The feeling behind them is the right ones. But we, as people, of course, we associate to things that are most common to us. So I think the word, especially the debate that ensued around sovereignty versus autonomy, is because we associate to things, especially in the UN context, that we've heard so many times before, and we each have maybe a different definition. So in the spirit of maybe trying to save us some time from trying to always put the caveats on what is meant here by sovereignty in a moment where this concept is so much debated, and then perhaps also trying to give an alternative to the debate between sovereignty and autonomy that ensued in the chat. I wanted to offer up the word agency, because when we look at sovereignty, we look at something that emphasizes authority and control, a lot of the time state control. And it might evoke debates around fragmentation or localization or competing governance models. Autonomy, it's also a really good word, but it emphasizes independence of self-reliance, but also suggests a degree of separation or something that is not really connected to the digital ecosystem. Whereas when we talk about agency, it focuses the ability of also governments, but also individuals and communities and businesses to make choices, shape outcomes, and pursue their objectives, whether it's in the digital age or otherwise. So I'm hoping that this could provide a useful bridge between sovereignty and autonomy, and recognize the importance of empowering countries and stakeholders to really shape their own digital futures or the future of intelligence or anything else. So I think if we go agency, trust, openness could be something that captures that boldness that you were speaking about. But perhaps take us away from a debate that I think is unnecessary at the IGF. I hope this comes in a constructive spirit. Thank you.
Thank you, Timia. Thank you for your considered input, especially with also giving perspective, different dimensions and offering solutions for word choices here. I think I see that both in the inputs we've already heard from and also the very lively chat that I see in the Zoom room. The queue is as follows. We will go first to Jordan, then to Wout, then to Awo, then we'll go to the room, and then we'll go to Jennifer. So first, the floor is now yours, Jordan.
Thanks, Chair. Jordan Carter, one of the technical community reps on the MAG. Thank you to the host country for this really well thought out and interesting proposal. I quite like how the discussion has been going, and the responses that you've been giving, Ambassador, in particular, really helped us to understand the underlying thinking, which is going to make the deliberations of the MAG on this much better informed. So thank you for sharing the thoughts you have so far. I just want to sort of add a voice around one of the challenges around sovereignty, especially given now the permanent nature of the forum. Because a lot of us during the GDC and WSIS negotiations were occasionally or sometimes frequently reminded that there is a space where only sovereigns have a say. And the IGF is the antithesis of that, right? And I think between those desires for control and autonomy and having agency, it's the right concept. And because of the rise of dialogue and discourse around digital sovereignty, I think it will strengthen the IGF to make a call out to it. But as a headline, I think it has challenges for all of us in the room who are not sovereigns. So I think that's part of what we have to square. And I just want to add a little tick of support, and this is just initial responses because we've only had this for a little while, around that adding to the word digital, because it just helps locate the Internet Governance Forum's dialogue around technology and the internet. When I first saw it, I was like, are you going to govern my intelligence? Leave it alone. My brain is not Siri. So I think that's something to just think about as well. But this is a really coherent and well thought out proposal. So thank you very much to bringing it to us.
No, so I think, yeah, and I've shared the deck so that you can understand our thinking. And even in sovereignty, it's not that I was, as you know, as part of the GDC negotiations. In fact, we negotiated on behalf of the G77. And part of the sovereignty, as we are describing it, is about agency, access, and capacity. And so if you say agency, then where's access? If you say access, where's capacity? So that's why we located sovereignty. And let me say this, part of why you've seen we keep on kind of insisting on leading these discussions, especially within the United Nations, is also not to cede ground for these concepts to people who want to shape it based on how they think these concepts needs to be interpreted. And that's why we are calling on a bolder IGF, because we cannot step away from a word because other people are interpreting it in a certain way. I think for us, we think we need to confront these words. And when, for example, we, and I'll say Kenya, speak about sovereignty, it's those three words. And sovereignty in Kenya, if a Kenyan is here, we say belongs to who? To the people. So that's where we come from. And so if you can take that grounding and foundation, that this is also the United Nations, it's we the people. So how do we start to anchor these concepts to their true meaning and word. Otherwise, we are not shy from a fight if it's about values. And we should not cede words to people who think they can shape them in the way that they want to shape them. So that was our thought process. Again, we're asking you to be bold.
Thank you, Jordan. Thank you, co-chair, for that very insightful dialogue. We will come back to the queue. The next person will be Wout, then Ewo, and then in the room, and then we'll go to Jennifer, and then we'll go to Dr. Rajendra. So Wout, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Walter Nauters from the board. For the record, as many of you know, I'm the coordinator of the Academic Coalition on Internet Standards, Security, Safety, but I'm speaking here as just as a person with these ideas. I just saw the new, what's called the motto or the theme for the first time, and the first thing I thought, this if somebody does not know the Internet Governance Forum, you think this is about an education forum or whatever. The second thought I had, the intelligence, I always think of intelligence agencies around the world. So that is something I think we need to address. And the second point I would like to make, that in 2015 in João Pessoa was able to organize a workshop on the future of work. And we all looked at the fourth industrial revolution, discussed it, and also discussed where our new jobs going to come from. And nobody knew, and nobody really knew what the implications would be, but we all foresaw that people would start losing their jobs. And we're in the middle of that, as we know. So I would say that with that, governing our intelligence also would have to see about how are we going to deal with the future that is almost even upon us with AI, with quantum computing, and how are we going to deal with our human intelligence compared to digital intelligence, and how are we going to make sure that humans remain not only relevant, but also have meaningful lives? Because if we're all without jobs, then only a few people are rich and the rest is nothing. So that's an angle which I think we could be addressing here as well, because that is also about how the internet is governed and the data that is controlled over the internet and by the people behind the internet. So I think that's my point, and thank you for giving me the floor, Jennifer.
Thank you very much, Wout, for a very thoughtful and straying into some philosophy response. Do appreciate that very much. The next person on the queue I have is Ao Adam. Please go ahead. You have the floor.
Thank you, Chair, for giving me the floor. My name is Ao Adam Amenya. I'm with Child Online Africa, and I also work with the Dynamic Coalition on Safety Standards and Security, as well as civil society. My take has to do with saying about the vision for children, and it looks as though we're focusing on the protection for children. But I wish to bring our minds to the fact that we need to look at the interest of children under the three key pillars of P. That's protection, provision for children, and their participation. Until we do that, we wouldn't be looking at children's participation in a comprehensive manner. And as much as possible, the process as far as young people are concerned is key. The process, in a sense, that I feel we need to broaden the scope when it comes to the consultation with children beyond Kenya, so that we put a system in place that is intentional to take into consideration the needs of every young person across board. So those are the few things I wish to throw in. Thank you for the opportunity, Chair. Over.
Thank you very much, Hawa, for a very, very important response. I think, as we have already heard from many of the young delegates in the room, I also see many that are involved with, I think, the Dynamic Coalition for, is it COS, Child Online Rights. I do see some that are already on the list as well, listening very carefully. So thank you very much for your input. It is very important. Next, I will go to the hand up I saw in the room. If you could just state your name and your affiliation.
Yes, thank you very much. My name is Francis Kerr. I'm from NGO Worlds, I'm part of the PBO organizations of Kenya. So my concern is about my question go to my ambassador. Let's talk about the affordability of internet in the countries. So, when we are here, we want to make sure that a child from Turkana, they're on the same page with this child from Nairobi. Affordability is very important. So that when we talk about artificial intelligence, we make sure that we are on the same page. We don't want just to talk about any artificial intelligence with a child from the urban. We need also to tackle the issue of the rural areas because, as you know, Kenya, we are 47 counties. We need to be on the same page. Thank you very much.
I think it's not only a Kenyan issue. I think it's an African issue and a global South issue. I just want to broaden it because IGF is not about Kenya. It's just being held in Kenya. I think part of why also you've seen us expanding the scope of how we define sovereignty is also about access. And access includes cost. And so I think for us, because right now, you all raised your hand and said you use a form of chat, a form of HR platform. Did you decide the cost? Did you decide the cost of it? Did they ask you? Did they ask you how much, whether you want to pay X or Y? So again, cost is just not about the internet itself. It's also about access to the capabilities of the internet. But also remember, it's not about being in Turkana for me. For those who are not in the room, picture that as a very remote area that is almost underdeveloped. That is why part of our also pillars, we're also talking about digital public infrastructure and infrastructure as part of the access component. Because if you don't invest in infrastructure, you'll not also be able to access the services. So again, that's also why we're sort of expanding the conversation around intelligence. And yes, we take the digital part could be interesting in terms of contextualizing that intelligence. But if you talk about the current intelligence model, it's from mine to model, right? It's from the mine value chain, from where the critical minerals are being dug. If you're somebody who works on children, it's also about children working in the mine. So for somebody who talked about safety, that's something that we also must be bold to talk about when it's about rights. And not just, this is why sometimes maybe just saying digital rights doesn't capture the scope of the reality of the African continent that also includes children working in the mines around critical minerals. It doesn't talk about African ownership or African voice around critical minerals, which is something, if you saw Kenya did not sign that declaration at the G7, we didn't. So again, just think of that in the context of what is happening right now in the world around the internet, not necessarily the digital aspects of the internet, but the internet value chain. Because we can be talking about governing the internet, but minerals, compute, data, talent, all these are sovereign issues that are being challenged right now. Again, broaden the scope. That was our thinking.
Thank you very much, Co-Chair, for a very comprehensive and very considered response to a very difficult question. It's a global South question. And of course, my home region, Asia Pacific, we faced very similar problems across the board with affordability as well. Now I'll go back to the queue that I see online, and Jennifer Kaberi is next. The floor is now yours.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jennifer Kaberi. I'm from Total News. I know we are so many of us here, but we needed to be here to ensure that children are not left out in IGF, because most of the time you guys do forget about children. So for me, I just want to go back to the conversation about sovereignty. When Ambassador Thigo asked us how many use ChatGPT, I saw not many hands go up, because all of us are cloud peoples, isn't it? And all of us know what happened 2 weeks ago. We do work, and then because your tokens have gone down, you go sleep thinking you're going to continue in the following morning. What happened? It was switched off. Okay. And that's what sovereignty is. You cannot be in control of something that you have not made or you make decision over. Okay. The US has sovereignty over products that are in their country, but we do not have that sovereignty. That's my understanding of sovereignty. So if you want to change sovereignty, can we do independency? probably that is going to be more, it's going to be more problematic. So I'm going to stick with sovereignty because I think that's a conversation that needs to be had, and it needs to be had very, very, very well. In terms of the logo, I'm with you guys. The circle is very closed. So can we mfungue namna hii? Like for English speakers, what I meant is we open. So we open. So we can do, you see that there are 2 lines here and 2 lines there. So we can put like a tree, maybe an adult and a child. My visual head is going crazy. A child on the one side and adult saying intergenerational, because we can't talking about future of digital intelligence without children. So we are here clocking it out for the children to be in the logo. So, but thank you so much, Ambassador Tigo.
We opened it. It's already open, by the way. We opened it in the middle. I did present it. I'll present it. One second. Yeah, we did.
Thank you very much for the very bold and provocative input. I think we are listening very carefully to what our co-chair told us this morning, to be bold and to be provocative. I will go now to the next in the queue. Dr. Rajendra, please, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Ambassador. I think I have been really enjoying the discussion and the spirit in which you've been giving answers. It also shows the passion, the kind of hard work that has gone in. I see large canvas thinking, and I also see the granularity, the way you have listed that you looked at 4 themes and then you drill down to the last one. And in fact, the very fact that you go to define sovereignty itself shows that every single element that you have listed, you have really worked really hard to convey what IGF would show in the annual forum. I can tell you that, in the morning you said, let's be provocative, people took it very seriously. And there is nothing wrong in it. But I can tell you, incorporate all the changes, have one more discussion, will be the same. That's the beauty of intelligent people in the room. So we tend to agree and then to say more. But I think overall, the way you have put the future, the governing the future of intelligence, I mean, each word carries a huge connotation if we understand it well. And I think the sessions that come out after the call for proposals will clear the rest, that we'll have a very engaging, meaningful, and I think a productive annual forum. So, I mean, ask me per se, excellent logo, theme is fantastic. Personally, I don't see reason to change. But yes, we change it again, we go back for a consultation, we'll change again. So, but that's the beauty of intelligence in the room. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rajendra. You're right. You put intelligent people with lots of good opinions. We can argue until the cows come home and we'll still have very good ideas coming out. But time is now limited. I have a queue. I have 4 people in this queue. Wendy, is it Wendy or did you raise your hand for somebody else? Yes, please go ahead.
Hi everyone. My name is Ivy Wanjiko. Ivy John. So I would like to second my colleague Jennifer on the logo. The logo, first of all, is very nice. I love it. And on the part of intergenerational palaver tree, I like to specify on the palaver tree because if I would take you back to our African heritage, the palaver tree is an African baobab tree that symbolizes unity, whereby people come together under the tree to make decisions and come up with solutions. Like the way we have just come together to make decisions and solutions. On the part of intergenerational, the palaver tree will act as a bridge where it will connect the youth or the children to you, the elders. So us, the youth, and the elders. So I feel like the palaver tree is a very important logo that should be incorporated, that will help us to better the IGF in one way or another. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ivy. Thank you for bringing out a very important point, which is the intergenerational dialogue, which IGF absolutely encapsulates and is in the DNA of this whole forum. I will now, now I have more hands up, and I have 2 hands from the same person. So the first, Annette, please, that you have the floor.
Thank you so much.
I'm here. Thank you so much. I'm Annette Mbugwa from the National Cohesion and Integration Commission, and I want to speak into this the theme on trust. And my feeling on this theme is how the host country can strengthen trust in digital spaces and electoral processes. Having that in December, we'll be counting very few months to election, and I'm sure it's going to be heated. So it will be a good time to have this conversation on how we can have safeguards on matters freedom of expressions vis-a-vis hate speech, misinformation, disinformation. Having this conversation will help us maybe get even recommendation on how we are going to handle the digital space and the online space, being that we are heading towards election time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Annette, for your inputs, especially on very important things that are coming up, I guess, for many different countries as well. I now have a long queue, and this is how the queue will go. I will first go to Olaf, then to Steve, then to Yao, and then to Mutegeki. So, Olaf, the floor is yours.
Thank you. 2 points. First, a piece of AI, articulate irony. For me, the labyrinth is a beautiful metaphor on how to get lost during the IGF. That was more an observation, not very serious, but the serious point that I wanted to make is less is more. My approach, at least in the background, and you might have heard me say this before, less is more, for the work that we need to do in the IGF is less is more. And I just heard the ambassador, and I really appreciate his explanation and his Global South approach, but I've heard him basically broadening the scope of internet governance to just very broadly. And I'm not quite sure on how we can work with that going forward in creating a workable scope in which we set a program and set clear guidelines. So that's not necessarily a critique, because I understand where you're coming from. But for us as MAG, I have a question mark on how to take that as input and create a really focused agenda that creates impact.
So and again, I get it, right? So developing a theme for a global event means you have to be broad. But also, secondly, when we say sovereignty, trust, and an open internet, those are anchors, right? But then if you look at, and let me take, for example, the most prominent voice here today has been the voice of children, right? So if children today, for example, we frame it around the tree, then part of the trust issue is about safety, children online, they name it differently, online safe spaces for children, right? I also have to be careful with that, right? So you cannot, so just think about that. So if that is a frame, then I think it should be, and I'm not prescribing what the MAG should do, it should be up to those who work on the issue of children to then develop proposals that speak to that broader theme. My last 2 years, including the G7, mentioned the issue of children working in mines, right? So that doesn't mean MAG's work needs to be broadened, but it means we have spaces for the reality of safety for children in how they see it in Africa. So the issue of children working in mines is not a European issue. In Europe, it's about suicide. You get what I mean? So it's basically the frontier models. So that's what I was saying, that we need to be broad enough to encompass the reality of these broader themes. That was really our thought process.
Thank you, Co-Chair, and thank you also, Olaf, for the question. That's always $1 million question for the MAG. How are we going to actually realize the program with these themes, right? I now have 6 people in the queue. I have 4 hands that I see in the Zoom room and 2 I see in the room. So this is how the queue will go. We have 6 minutes left. I will try to listen and give the floor to as many people as possible. So if you have something burning, please put your hand up now so I can manage the time. I will give the floor now to Steve Isaboke. Steve, the floor is now yours.
Yeah, thank you, Co-Chair, and thank you, members of the MAG. My name is Steve Isaboke. I'm the Principal Secretary for Broadcasting and Telecoms in Kenya, and actually the Vice Co-Chair to the chair of obviously based in Kenya. And I think mine is basically obviously pure on record, making my contribution because my team is actually involved working with Ambassador Thigo in developing part of the logo and some of the contributions at the themes. And so I will not really indulge into the debate around the design. What we agreed with Ambassador Thigo is that we'll be open to getting ideas, particularly from the young people, that this is meant for. And eventually maybe the best idea sort of take the day in terms of the logo that we put forward for this conference. And just to say that we obviously as a host country, and I know you guys who are visiting the venue, I think this week, we're working hard, and I'm sure you are taken around for those who made time to Nairobi, and doing everything else with the whole of government approach to make sure that this event succeeds in December. I just wanted to be on record, Chair, for this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much, host country co-chair, and we have the privilege of hearing you, remote in as well as, of course, the in-person presence of Ambassador Thigo, who's been with us for a lot of the good discussions here. So we do appreciate you taking the time to dial in and listen to all of the input that the community has given. So thank you very much for this. Next, I will go to Yao, who has his hand raised. Yao, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Co-Chair, and thank you, everybody, for the contribution. This is Yao speaking for the record. Just to mention two things. First one, regarding the logo, I would like to beg everybody, please leave the logo like that. Just say sorry, and the logo is very fine. I think even when you look at it like that, I think I wanted to say something. I think Olaf mentioned already. It's like, I've been to IGF also, and then even online and in presence, sometimes you are lost because many of different sessions to go, and you are interested in everything. But this sort of capture it in a way, this labyrinth thingy. So please let us have this vision of the logo as it is and keep it like that. Regarding the team, in the chat we have difficulty agreeing on either keep the topics governing the future of intelligence or governance of the future of intelligence. I think if we agree on compromise regarding the word governing and governance, and we pick governance, I think honestly it will fit as a compromise to the topic, overarching theme, governance of the future of the intelligences, and then over the sub themes might bridge around trust, inclusion, human agency in digital ages, but also safety and child online safety. I just want to make this comment to as a contribution to the topic issue as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Yao, for your very considered input there. I have 4 people left on the queue, and now I see 5. Vinicius, you will be the last one, and I'm cutting the queue off there. Oh, I see another one, but let's be kind to those in the room who've been very patiently waiting. So first I will go to the Association of Freelance Journalists, then I'll go to Kenya IGF, then I'll go back to the queue that I see in the room, and now the order has changed for me somehow. I remember it was Mutageki first, then I'll go to Octavia, and then Vinicius, and then Emmanuel. Let's try to wrap it very quickly. So because we only have 1 minute left on the schedule, let's be kind to each other. 30 seconds each for the remaining people on the queue. So first, Association of Freelance Journalists. Please go ahead.
Hi. Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Mercy from the Kenya Coalition on Youth, Peace and Security. And my request is on the underlying theme of capacity building, may we try to simplify the concept of the internet governance for the local mwananchi or local citizen. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your very concise input. Next on the queue, I have Kenya IGF. Please go ahead.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair and Co-Chair. My name is Kip. I have turned my hat to now a design of Kenya IGF, and I represent that as a MAG member of the Kenya IGF. First, I would like to say that Kenya IGF is one of the most strong national NRIs, having done national IGF successfully for 19 straight years. Is this a point where I get some applaud for Kenya IGF? And it hasn't stopped there. Moved very quickly also to establish a School of Internet Governance, again, the first as an NRI, and has run successfully for 11 years. And for 7 years straight, Kenya, again, has been strong in the youth IGF. And I'm really interested about the youth conversation and the children conversation that is coming up into the room. But even as that happens, again, Kenya has taken the lead around this. For 5 years straight, Kenya has held Children IGF, which has been happening very, very independently, and they self-organize, the stakeholders have been coming in. We have reports to share. I'm sure the Secretariat can attest that we reached out to them. We know in the spirit that we wanted some of these reports to be published in the global IGF website where we have our reports, and I know that there are some consultations that are happening. But just to encourage the young people who are here, that we can link you to the Children IGF process that is happening in Kenya, but also telling the globe that they can learn from what Kenya has done over the last 5 years. In conclusion, I also just want to acknowledge the work that has gone in around the logo and the presentation. But sometimes we have to give consensus. This is my personal view. That, we might not agree with everything 100%, it's give and take. Otherwise, sometimes it might be very difficult to please everyone. Next year, we'll have another one. But I hope that we will keep remembering this for Kenya, going forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kenya IGF, for your contribution, of course, of your on continuing work as well, and your offer to connect with the young people here. Next, I will go to Mutageki, then I'll go to Octavia, then Vinicius, then Emmanuel, you have the last word. So let's be kind to each other and keep your inputs concise. Mutageki, please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Mutageki Cliff Agaba, and I'm from the AFRALO, which is the Africa Regional At-Large Organization. It's a community, a stakeholder community within the at-large ICANN ecosystem. And what I want to present is what I noticed that we have a crisis at the moment. And I see there's an opportunity in every crisis. And the crisis we have is that we have competing opinions about the logo, the theme. But at the end of the day, what the grassroots person is asking themselves about, do they have access to internet? Are they able to connect to the internet in their local language? Are they able to find or feel secure when they connect to the internet? So now that the IGF is permanent, we could set some things to be permanent. For example, we can adopt for the host country whenever the IGF goes to a different country. It's an opportunity for us to connect to the culture of that country. And that's why it's important. I like the logo personally, also coming from a design perspective. I like the logo. I like the brand identity. But then also this is an opportunity for us to adopt the identity of the country that is hosting. For example, IGF 25 adopted the Norwegian colors. 2026, it's the Kenyan colors. Next year, if it's in a different country, we could adopt their colors, their icons, and their cultural identity. That's my proposal.
Thank you very much, Mutagegi, for your considered inputs. We've heard them loud and clear. Next, I will go to Octavia. Octavia, you have now the floor.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Co-Chair. I have two. I'll be mindful and be short. I have two questions. First is relating to the pillars. It's my understanding that the third pillar, the open internet, is the sort of the underlying basis of the two others. I was wondering whether there'd been a conversation when you were doing all of this work, and thank you again for all the work you've done on this. Whether you had at any point considered having the underlying pillar, the open internet, as the first pillar. And the second question is, we've heard from youth, and we've heard from children, and children have been now also in the room emphasized. And it made me wonder, because looking through, and I understand that we have to be concise, and that people won't come to the IGF and travel to address anything or everything. But I was wondering about since we are talking about intelligence, and within that generative artificial intelligence, whether environmental issues had been discussed in your process. I was looking through the slides, and I couldn't find in the discarded, or the runners-up, let me say, not the discarded, the runner-up themes, any considerations around environmental issues when it comes to the internet, and how we yes, the internet. I'll leave it there. Thank you, Chair and Co-Chair.
So quickly, also in the interest of time, I think the order is fine. Again, as long as the three are there, I think that is our thought process. Secondly, yes, and that's why we're saying mind to model. When you say mind to model, it means you also have environmental concerns. And part of even our broadening of this conversation is broadening safety to include environmental concerns, right? So safety to the planet, issues around compute and how models are consuming power, issues around water and community rights. So all that is there. And just for impact is to also know that Kenya was the country that proposed the first ever UNES 7 resolution on environmental impact of artificial intelligence systems. So it is there in terms of our thought process. But again, these are just host country suggestions on how we came up with the theme. I think it will still be up to the MAG to decide those specifics.
Thank you very much, Co-Chair, for the response. And yes, indeed, it is going to be MAG work to look at it, take in all these suggestions, and eventually we need to approve the final theme and all the sub-themes as well. So we have work ahead. I have two left in the queue, Vinicius and then Emmanuel. If you could please be concise with your input. Floor is now yours, Vinicius.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much. Sorry for this last-minute intervention, and sorry for not being there with everyone. I'll be very brief, actually. Just to recognize the work that has been done with this, all this explanation for the team, the general team. I understand that we can always go deeper in the concepts, and if you think of the room and all the interventions, probably everyone is correct about all the explanations and the counter interventions on how to give the rationale for the team. But for the means of general team, I think the proposition is quite good. It's quite acceptable. The rationale is quite acceptable, and I do think that the rationale that was presented will help us streamline all the rest that we will need in terms of sub-teams and the tracks and so on. So I think we have something good at hand. Probably we can think of some tweaks in terms that we could use for broader consensus. but I think we do have a good thing to build upon. And I would maybe exchange N for the in the open internet, but this is also a minor tweak to the rest of the team. Thank you very much, and I hope we can go forward in some way, in somewhat briefly process with this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vinicius. And the last word, Emmanuel, if you could be concise, and then I'll wrap this and go to our next agenda item. Emmanuel, the floor is now yours.
Okay, thank you. First of all, let me join the rest in congratulating Ambassador. This was well done. However, I have around 2 worries, particularly under Pillar 2. And the first worry is, I'll pose it in form of a question. Is there any context maybe that defined the level of trust, public trust towards these 2 parliamentary track and the judiciary track systems that you've mentioned there? And then another worry is your work, it strongly warns against what we call selective multi-stakeholderism. However, again, it highlights the 2, that is legislature and the judiciaries. Don't you think that by doing this, it might pose a shift from multi-stakeholderism to multilateralism instead? Thank you.
Actually, no. I'll be very clear. I think just so briefly, 2 parts. That's my answer. I don't think it will do that. Understand the context within which we live in right now. So my whole last of 2 years in all, I've been everywhere. In terms of negotiating for a judiciary was never there, parliament was not there, ever, in any of those spaces. So I think it is important how now the IGF starts to shift to include these pillars that must be part of this conversation. If all else fails, you go to the judiciary. Judiciary does not have capacity to mitigate against that. Parliament is the people's representative, right? So how do you ensure that also the people representative are part of this conversation? So I don't think it's selective. I think for me, we've gone above and beyond being inclusive, but also to the reality that not only the executive should be part of this conversation. Secondly, who makes the laws? It's Parliament, right? So how does Parliament make laws around internet governance when they don't understand the issues or they don't engage the constituency? And remember, there's no framework to engage Parliament or legislature or judiciary in these processes. And that's why I feel potentially the IGF could be an innovation. Again, asking you to think a little bit broadly, because part of what we are continuing to push as Kenya is how do you reimagine multilateralism? Now, let me go to your point. Reimagining it, the current multilateralism is shaped around 1945 to 1950, which was very much around the foundations of the United Nations. That somebody mentioned is very much centered around member states. IGF currently is the only multi-stakeholder mechanism. Am I wrong or right? The only one, right? That now is permanent. That includes everyone, including civil society. You don't have to be a member of ECOSOC to participate in IGF. So imagine this as that new opportunity where you can engage, yes, in a permanent basis, but also in a more consequential manner. Because then you have everybody who can make decisions, but also everybody who potentially has the power to hold the other to account. Right now, these are co-equal arms of government. And in most cases, we know now that the judiciary has become the last line of defense. Yes or no? So that's the context we live in right now. So I think it's okay to include the judiciary and parliament in these conversations. And it's not a contradiction.
Thank you very much, Co-Chair, for that very considered response. And I think he also has to run. So thank you again, Ambassador Tico, for taking the time to have very lengthy and also very detailed responses, very considered responses to all these questions that we've had when we first take a look at the logo, when we first take a look at the theme. So thank you very much, Ambassador. I guess a round of applause. Again, I will not be a chair that doesn't give us a break. I know we've sort of passed the time of break, but if we all come back in 10 minutes, the next agenda item is very important. It is the strategic priorities for IGF 2026. Come back at 5 to the top of the hour, please do. The conversation will start if you're not in the room. So really thank you again for the remote participants staying with us the whole day. We will start in 10 minutes, so 5 to the hour. Thanks.
And if anyone picked a charger from the other side, it was mine. Please share it to me. A mobile charger, mobile phone charger. Yes, with a black cable.
the Secretariat with the support of the MAG and vice versa to look at helping the intersessional work leads to develop these mechanisms that better work and better connect all of this community input into the annual meeting outcome. So keep that in mind as well. Section 2, recommendation 4, of course, again, we look at, a multi-year cycle, but again, I'd like us really in this particular hour to focus on this IGF cycle. We need to have a good start, and then we can plan ahead for the subsequent years. With that, I think I'd like to open the floor. Again, the priority goes first to community inputs and discussion. And of course, MAG members, we welcome your input and hands as well. I'm going to give us a little bit of time to think. The queue is currently empty. Okay. Mokhtar, I can always count on you for our first intervention. Please go ahead.
So as I was saying, thank you very much. With regard to the coherence, I personally strongly support that. Particularly this strong link or a tight link between intersessional works, NRIs, and the annual meeting. Because most of the time, some good, excellent intersessional works don't go to the annual meeting and don't reach that floor in general. Second, with regard to the capacity building, I think it should not be treated as something aside. Rather, every proposed thematic should take care of our carry out part of the capacity building to be there. And finally, I just wanted to say that coherence in this kind of situation is not about just some kind of administrative arrangement. It's about how we will be converting the 1 week in Nairobi into something that is really actionable. I stop here and thank you very much. I think I breaks the ice.
Thank you very much, Mokhtar. Always appreciate your thoughts to break the ice as well. I think it's very important for us to look at how we action and how we implement and all of that. Coherence is a beautiful word, but we need to actually make it happen. I think that's what we're moving towards as well. I will go to my queue now. Now we have a queue. The queue will go as follows. We'll go first to Lito, then to Marcus, and then we'll go to Eugene and then Jordan. So Lito, please, you have the floor.
Thank you, Jen. I would like to highlight a couple of things that are in the experts report. Maybe one of them is not so explicit, but I will mention the two of them. First, the IGF has been declared a permanent event. We all know that. So that means that MAG needs to revisit the way we do our work. I mean, we need to think also that this MAG is not only for this year. I mean, the MAG is for this year, but we need to plan and focus for the future. So we need to start at some point, leave some pending work for the next MAG. So that's a different thinking. That's a different mindset, because we need to, if we find something that we need to improve, okay, it's not necessarily we will do it this year. We may make a note and then leave it for the next MAG that will come next year or the following years. That's one thing. And the other issue is communications. I mean, in the experts report, there is the word communication 3 times, and it means that somebody said it in the morning, MAG needs to improve the way it communicates alongside with the secretariat, of course, how it communicates what we are doing, what we are going to do, and how we attract more people to attend and to participate, not only in the IGF, but all of the intersectional activities. So that's a separate issue, but I think those two are very key for this MAG. Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa. Well, one of the things that also came out of the EGM, right, is that we're going to start processing the next year's MAG quite early, basically like now, and make sure that we know who the next year's MAG is before the annual meeting. So there can be some communication over a couple of months before the new MAG takes on. This year, it's not going to be possible because the Secretary General is changing. And the Secretary General cannot choose the MAG for the next Secretary General. But going on forward, that's what we're going to be doing too. Yeah.
Thank you, Lito, for very good inputs, and thank you, Chengta, for the clarification. Before I go to the queue, I just want to highlight something very important that I think Lito just mentioned. This MAG needs to be very clear on what we're able to do in this cycle. And I think previous MAGs have done the same and have done what they can and then recommended for future MAGs. So here, I really urge 2026 MAG members to think about and prioritize all of these good recommendations and see the capacity that we have to be able to implement during the cycle and have very clear communications for the expectations of the community on what will then be suggested to be improved upon in the next year and the years following that. Okay, I will go back to my queue now. Next, we have Marcus Coomer. Marcus, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. I hope you can hear me. I put up my hand in my capacity as co-facilitator of the Dynamic Coalition Coordination Group. The expert group meeting report makes it clear that the Dynamic Coalitions are ready to help shape the agenda of the annual meeting. And we have great expertise to add to the agenda, and I would like to pick up 3 themes that were already mentioned this morning. One was mentioned by the colleague from the OECD, that is quantum computing. The other one was mentioned just before, and the rights of children and children on the internet. And there are various young people in the room as well, and we have a dynamic coalition dealing with the rights of children. And also capacity building was mentioned, and I think all dynamic coalitions contribute to capacity building. That is all clearly there, and the dynamic coalitions stand ready. And we would also move away from the past where we were sort of happy to be in a silo, having our own meeting, but no really to integrate into the annual program. And that would also include the high-level meetings and the meetings organized by the host country. I would have a very small suggestion in this regard. In the past, we always were asked to make our point right at the end when it came to the intersessional meetings. But my suggestion would be that after each substantive discussions, you, Chair, could ask whether the dynamic coalitions have anything to contribute to a particular issue under discussion. That, I think, would help the better integration of the dynamic coalitions in the overall discussions. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Marcus, and highlighting the very important and good work that the dynamic coalitions do. Indeed, the open consultations, the foremost focus for this day is to listen to all of the community input. So if I was not explicit enough, I do encourage all intersessional work, all of the dynamic coalitions, all of the NRIs, all of that, especially community members who are very involved with this work, to please speak up, give us your input. And this way, the MAG 2026 cohort can take these very good inputs and then work that into the next 2 days of the MAG meeting. So appreciate very much, and thank you very much, Marcus, for this intervention. I will now go to my queue, and I think it is Jordan Carter. So Jordan, you have the floor.
Thanks, Jen. Good afternoon, all. Just something in the EGM report that struck me really, Chengetai, sort of a comment/question directed your way. The sort of paragraph 3 in section 2 on the IGF says this: the Secretariat will lead or develop mechanisms to better connect community inputs, intersessional work, and so on. So it's like a secretariat lead and incorporating MAG input. And I think that could help with the broader coherence of the IGF system. But I was wondering if you have any views about what the secretariat leading that work looks like. Is it going to be in the sense of documenting more concrete proposals and then sharing them with MAG and the community for input? Maybe a select slice of those for this year and more next year, given the timeframes window. Just a little bit more flavor about how that's going to work would be interesting to me and probably to other MAG members as well.
Thank you very much for the question. I just quickly read the thing, but yes, I mean, once the intersessional work starts, we're not going to just be developing it by ourselves and telling you. We're going to be developing it together and see how we can do it, especially with the stakeholders. Can you just put it back? And also, yes. Oh, yes, no, that's fine. I mean, once we have the inputs, once we have the reports, etc., we have to coordinate with the other groups. We have to coordinate with DESA, UNESCO, our partners. Yeah. I mean, I think we can do that. I don't think that's complicated. But once we have a plan, once the intersessional work starts, we'll involve you as well.
Thank you very much, Chengetai, for the answer. I see also in Zoom and on screen that we have highlighted that specific section that you were talking about. So hopefully that answers part of where you wanted to know some context. I will now move to, and I see that we have a MAG member and then 3 community members. Dr. Rajendra, if you would allow me to, okay. So this is how the queue will go. We'll first go to Eurodig for Sandra, and then we'll go to Wout, then to Eugene, and we'll come back to you, Dr. Rajendra. So Eurodig, Sandra, you have the floor.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Fantastic. Congratulations to Kenya for hosting the IGF. That is very much appreciated. And also congratulations to all new MAG members. You have a lot of work ahead, and I don't want to be in your shoes to accomplish this in such a short time frame. So good luck for what you have to do. Jennifer, you made it very clear at the beginning, this session is about the operational goals for this year. On the longer term, I would just like to ask the Secretariat if it is possible to maybe outline a timeline on when which process will be starting, a process of developing a multi-year strategy, a process of looking into the different elements of the IGF, like the dynamic coalitions or the NRIs, how they go together. So that at least from the community point of view, we could also kind of incorporate that in our timelines. Just to give you an example, at the moment we are also looking at several changes in the regional European IGF, the Eurodig, in particular how we form our program committee, also with respect to the Sao Paulo multi-stakeholder guidelines. And I do think it would make a lot of sense if we align our efforts a little bit here. And that's why it would be helpful to know at least in which, and it doesn't have to be super detailed. And of course, there can be changes, but to have an idea on what's coming next would help in this respect. And on this year's challenges and work that lies ahead, I would like to make a wish. It's not new. It has been said 1,000 times, but it's something that we also again witnessed, that we are not really living up to our own claims. Sessions must be more interactive, less interventions or monologue interventions, less panel speakers. The USTIC participant that spoke earlier in this meeting today, she mentioned it also. Give those who are mostly affected a seat at the table, not only have them attending the Eurodig, but really give them a seat at the table. That really needs a lot of work from the session organizers, possibly also from the MAG, to reach out to those who are affected but are not yet at the table. Let's stay in that terminology. We really need to involve those and engage them more and have less of a panel discussion. I know this is a really hard thing to do because everyone not everyone, but many community members are just so familiar with the concept of building a panel and having a panel discussion and a moderator and all this. But the involvement of the audience or having a totally new concept of real dialogue with no panel speakers at all is really something that I would wish this MARC, at least for some session, is trying to do so that we can really get better in this respect. And I'm saying this not only to the MARC, I'm saying this to myself, as Eurodic, because we are basically working on the same direction, that we really would like to be even more inclusive and more of a, because dialogue is in our name, so that it's really more of a discussion and not just so much of individuals giving interventions. Thank you very much.
I agree with you, Sandra, that we should coordinate as much as possible, and we will be releasing a timetable. I don't know how detailed it's going to be, but we can flesh it as we go along. And yes, I think it's important that we have this feedback loop synchronicity that we go on. And as far as your question on the workshops, yes, that's very, very difficult, especially with the workshop organizers. They can say anything in their agenda, but when it comes to the actual day, something completely different may happen. So we have to see how we can do that. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Chengetai. Thank you, Sandra, for very good suggestions. Music to my ears, because I like a timeline. I'm a person who likes to set the goals to see where we get to the target. So I think MAG 2026, we prioritize what we can achieve in this IGF cycle. And then I'm sure the Secretariat will be very happy to be able to create this document for us. And of course, suggestions for the next MAG. One thing that's really important, again, I think Sandra also mentioned, I challenge our MAG, 2026 MAG cohort and the whole community. When you're thinking about your proposals, think boldly as well. See how you can incorporate this innovative and more real participation and real dialogue instead of like a one-way, panel. I think that would benefit the entire program. So both the community and the MAG cohort. I didn't expect that echo. Are we good? We're good. And so thank you very much, Sandra, for that. Next on the queue, and by request, I've been requested to allow the floor first to Eugene, then we'll go to Wout, and then we'll go to Dr. Rajendra. So Eugene, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Eugene Morozov, and I represent Dynamic Coalition on Blockchain Assurance and Standardization. And for the purposes of this meeting, I'm also honored to mention our collaboration with the Dynamic Coalition on Internet Standards, Security, and Safety as evidence of our cooperation and joint efforts among various IGF dynamic coalitions. We appreciate the opportunity to work with and through the IGF platform to identify and promote technologies that are supporting the Sustainable Development Goals and the Global Digital Compact. Our objective is to propose global standards for the safe and responsible design and assurance of technology architectures and their use to help governments, businesses, and individuals reduce the risks that they're facing while enjoying the benefits arising due to the fast advance of emerging technologies in our lives. In order for us to effectively deliver our message based on the extensive body of knowledge in emerging technologies, we seek support of this MAG in giving us an opportunity to present and share our recommendations proposed standards and assurance mechanisms, as well as best practices and learning opportunities through the agenda of the discussions at the IGF 2026 in Nairobi, as may be appropriate, including a main session and incorporation into high-level workshops, if possible. We would additionally suggest that this work is not only presented at the annual event, but also becomes subject of intersessionary work of IGF stakeholders. That can be achieved through regular webinars, publications, conferences, and assessments we do, being shared with the broader audiences using the wide reach capabilities available to the IGF, now being a permanent UN initiative. Specifically, we propose, fully in line with the themes identified by IGF earlier, to focus some of the annual event and intersessional work on the impact of AI, blockchain, and quantum in various industries, on digital assets and their effect on national and local economies, on how to create a required trust in software solutions using the AI and blockchain assessments methods and post-quantum cryptography achievements, on new opportunities in governance, and on how emerging technologies can improve people's lives if they are implemented, used, and governed responsibly. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Eugene, for a very comprehensive intervention. We hear you loud and clear. There's a lot of very good work being done on many different aspects, and very much appreciate the Dynamic Coalition thoughtful analysis already on the themes that's been presented. So thank you for that. Next, I have on my list is Wout Dinatris. You have now the floor.
Yes, thank you, Jennifer. Wout Dinatris van der Borgt, coordinator of the Internet Standards Security Safety Coalition, was just mentioned by Eugene, and thank you for presenting. As you understand, I fully support what he was saying. I would like to point out something more elaborate, and also a little bit more elaborate than what Marcus just presented. If we look at the WSIS Plus 20 outcome document, it not only recognizes dynamic coalitions as part of the IGF ecosystem, but also calls for the strengthening of intersessional work and for it to feed into policy-making bodies within and beyond UN processes. And this asks for efforts on both sides of the aisle, for the IGF to organize itself differently and for other entities to be open and welcoming to policy advice. And I was not able to listen into the organizations this morning, but usually they tell us what they're doing and not how they interact with the IGF, except when they are organizing sessions themselves. So how are we going to organize that? And the ideal outcome would be if all become involved in intersessional processes. The 23 DCs, they're open, bottom-up, and multi-stakeholder initiative, regularly delivering policy recommendations, research reports, practical solutions, best practices, etc., on a diverse set of topics. And in 2026, we have a different position and a new role, as the outcome document mentioned. And that is why we aim to leverage the potential the DCs have for strengthening the IGF. So we advocate not only working more closely with the MAG, but also with the IGF Secretariat on all the other parts of the program, where perhaps we need to get better known as well, that we produce intersessional reports and need to do intersessional work, and that there may be more very sensible policy recommendations that they could use in their own future work. So I think that if we address that, then we see that this is far more than just the yearly event program. And the DCs recognize this and stand ready to work with all concerned on program integration and outcome dissemination. And we realize this will come with potential obligations towards DCs as well. And we will start work on how to deal with our new role, and we will probably be sharing that with you in the coming months as input for further discussion. So I think that with that said, we all have our work cut out, but we have to learn how to integrate the intercessional work better into the IGF's program, and that encompasses all parts of the IGF program. So I'm really looking very forward to be working with you in the near future to see how we can make this happen, and we can try it out in 2026 and then evaluate in 2027. Thank you very much for the opportunity, Jennifer. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Wout. I think your intervention, along with a lot of the that we've heard so far from the dynamic coalitions, really tell us a lot of the highlights of the work and the importance of the work, especially intercessional work. That gives me a very good segue to bring our attention to the other part of the EGM report. There's 3 particular recommendations I'd like us to think about right now. And those already in the queue, you can also think about it in your responses as well. So strengthening the IGF's contribution to implementation of WSIS plus 20, GDC Global Dialogue on AI Governance and other digital governance processes, specifically in section 4, the first recommendation, the second, and also the fourth, and I'll read them out very quickly because it's quite short. So the IGF should clearly define and operationalize its role within the broader digital governance landscape. I think this whole day we've been trying to circle around this question, so we do have to think about that in the context of this cycle first, and then of course subsequent years. The second one is section 4, recommendation 2. The IGF should strengthen coherence and collaboration with relevant processes and institutions, including the WSIS follow-up. I think Chengetai earlier gave a really good answer about how the Secretariat can help all of this intercessional work make those connections to the relevant institutions, to the relevant processes. We look forward to being able to operationalize that as well. And then section 4, recommendation 4, is the IGF should leverage its position to act as a bridge between the multi-stakeholder and intergovernmental processes. So I think, Wout, you mentioned earlier, we heard from a lot of the institutions this morning on what they do and how they interact. We also need to think about how this actually makes sense from the IGF point of view as well. In doing so, it could support efforts within the United Nations system to help improve coherence. Again, the word here is coherence, including by helping to consolidate overlapping or duplicative discussions and events. So just bringing your attention to these 3 particular recommendations, and I will now go back to our queue. Dr. Rajendra, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. I think when I look at my decade of being at IGF, again, I don't want to quote the dynamic coalitions. I've been a part of that. That's where grounds up I have come with digital economy, environment, digital health. But what is very interesting is my previous role with the government. In government, we look at these multilateral bodies and the thought leadership that comes out. Just imagine a single quality paper coming out from IGF that turns the heads of the government to say, we need to look at it. The G7s, the G20s, the SAARC forums, they say, there is a paper, we need to look at it. So, and I think perception has not changed, position has changed. Perception is, we are very important. Perception is, this is a multilateral body. Anything coming out that implies to all governments to look at. Member states, as we call them. But the unique positioning we have is, we are a multi-stakeholder. We can go beyond the remit of what others can do. That gives us enormous grounds of opportunity, to show. And I think this is a pivot year for us. And I think this is where the MAG's role is crucial, because I think it'll require heavy lifting. And this is the time where we invest our energies into making sure that the speed and direction both is set out, not just for now, which is urgent, but also long-term, which is important. So that's where I see influence is important, but it should be with inclusivity, because we are multi-stakeholder. We have topics we should discuss. Second thing is, should we have the continuity of what we have been doing as, PNRIs, best practices forum, DCs? Should we horizontally integrate some of those things? You have taken up that, in our MAC calls, because that will bring more cohesive work internally. Then only we are going to be, a coherent force outside as IGF. We have to first increase the speed of work we do. It can't be 1 year, one forum that happens at the end of the year and we wait for it and we think that that's all that we do. It's actually not. We have policies, we have standards, we have status reports coming out. So what exactly should we be doing? As we should identify the direction of what we will do, the structure. Should we continue the same? Should we go for a radical change? That is what probably the MAG, because we can't be business as usual, what we have been for 20 years. We have got extension 5 years, 10 years, and then finally, I think they mean business. They're doing good work. So there was no favor, we got that. And then I would say that, we should also try and figure out the indices that could measure our impact. What did we produce that meant meaningful output for our stakeholders, which is primarily, I still believe it is government. I mean, worked in government. So when I represented 1.3 billion when I joined IGF to now 1.45 billion, any single thing that comes to the digital economy is important. How we look at DPIs, DPGs, even AIs, positioning as DPGs and DPIs would be very different than what we talk today. And we should be at that high level of thought leadership. On one side, we can debate logos and everything. We should debate the future of what we are creating as thought leaders. I think that's a bigger responsibility. And IGF should have a paper, I think, which next G7, G20 or SARC should look at saying, I think there's a paper we have to refer. We should be referred as quality. So quality is going to be very important rather than just number of papers that come out. So that's a very high bar that we have to put. So there should be framework on what kind of things that we are coming out. How do they, impact the global goods, the global economy, GDP per capita. So indices we have to define as a group. I think there could be a subgroup that defines what kind of indices do we want to impact through our work. I think the world is changing faster than we thought. It's not going to be the same. None of the things, we all know it. And I think I'm very optimistic that we are at the right time and we have a permanent mandate at the best time in history of humanity. And we should make the best opportunity out of that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rajendra. I appreciate very much both the optimism and the ambition of this. I think we need to be very clear on this. We need to be clear on the timeline and the goals, and we also need to think about, have some thought around how do we actually measure this impact, qualitative, quantitative, how it is that we can measure. I know with the remaining time for this cycle, the 5+ months that we have, we might not be able to actually get to the measurement, but certainly we need to make the recommendations for future MAG to take a look at, what this might mean. So do to think about it a little bit more. I now have a queue. I see there's 3 hands in the Zoom room and I see 1 in the room. So this is how the queue will follow. We'll go first to Peace, then to Angela, then to Amrita, and then to the flag that I see online, which I can't see who it might be, but if you can just angle your flag in a little bit, I will be able to call on you. So first, the floor goes to Peace.
Thank you, Chair, for the floor, and I know that we should give a priority to the community. What I wanted to bring on the floor is something that already started somehow in the morning. It's about strengthening the participation from developing countries and also underrepresented stakeholders. And from the EGM report, it pulls out the government, which is very true that we have few government people participating in the IGF. So, and it recommends, for instance, having a government track or dialogue, something, not track, dialogue, really. And I think the fact that this year we are in Global South, specifically in Africa, it will be a good chance to implement this. I want to give an example of something that has been very impactful, the involvement of members of parliament, the parliamentary track. I think it's been very impactful, and also speaking as a coordinator of AfriSIC. We've had members of parliament join AfriSIC, and it has changed the conversation in the space, the quality of conversation that come from the members of parliament, the engagement in the space. We'll just hold on a little bit. Yeah. Yes. So I think engaging the members of parliament has been very impactful. So I think we need to really consider having government be part of this and be very intentional on how we want to engage them. And this could be a chance for us to really bring as many government into the space, because they're really crucial in the conversation that we have. And I think with time, I know that government, we're talking about the sustainability of this kind of sustainability of engaging them and their participation in IGF. If they find relevance and importance of this in the space, they could start to consider, for instance, to put IGF as one of their key conferences or platforms that they must participate, and they could start to have budgets, for instance, within their ministries to participate at the IGF. So I wanted to just echo this and say that, you know, MAG could consider really taking on this from these recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Peace. As we know, and the agenda for tomorrow's MAG meeting, there is a agenda item on the government dialogue, and I'm sure we'll also hear some updates from our IGF Secretariat focal point on the parliamentarian and judiciary track as well. I think that we have a very good support there. So thank you for bringing this to, of course, our collective attention, and we hope to have a very good discussion during that agenda item. I will go to the queue now, and thank you, Angela, for ceding the floor first to Amrita. So the queue will come as follows. I will first go to Amrita as one of the members of the community, then I'll go to Angela, then I'll go into the room and call on Taiwo, and then I'll come to Miret. So Amrita, the floor is now yours.
Thank you so much, Chair, and thank you, Angela, for giving me, the opportunity to speak first. And Chair, as you mentioned, you have very less time. You have approximately 5 months, so you should do things which are can be attained. One of the things which I think is IGF is a trove of information, which has been assimilated over the years. All we need is to realign things. For example, there has been a lot of discussion about child assurance, which the world is currently, waking up to currently. Why don't we segregate those information, put it in a particular place so that decision makers, stakeholders can come and see it? So these are small things which we can do, segregating the information based upon issues, which people can look at it, which the Secretariat can do. They can take the help of certain MAG members, etc. So the strategic information can be there and can be shared with relevant people. I think sharing these information is something which the EGM also takes. Similarly, IGF needs to have liaising with the different other processes which are happening. Now, the Secretariat cannot do it alone. So could there be a way to identify, by the MAG identify strategically who could be the people who could act as liaisons, getting on the information so that information goes out on time? We don't wait till the last moment for it to go. While it is good that the DCs have come forward to help in a lot of things, if we want to get regulators, decision makers, judiciary, etc., to Kenya, why don't we use the NRIs in those countries to actually, do the dialogue apart from what the IGF Secretariat through the UN process does? So what I want to say is, you have a MAG which should be used strategically to do whatever things are possible in the next 5 months, rather than just looking at proposals and workshops. You don't need to do big things. You have a lot of things. All you need to do is strategically focus on things, what you could do. For example, you have had media people coming over for the last 2 years. Why don't you use them to, promote the upcoming IGF? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Amrita. Very much appreciate very practical suggestions, especially for us to accomplish within this cycle. Again, I'd like to highlight Amrita's longstanding support and work in the MAG Working Group for Strategy. She was one of the co-chairs of last year as well. Now I will go to my queue, and Angela, you have now the floor.
Thank you so much, Chair. My apologies to the room for not turning on the camera. I'm on the move currently. So I would just like to express my support to the Chair's recommendation on those 3 recommendations, point 1, 2, and 4. They are very pragmatic and definitely hit where the spots is, because this is what we have got. This is what the UN has considered when they given IGF its permanent mandate. So we need to showcase how we can make an impact and difference. However, I also mindful that we need to be pragmatic. So timelines and clear deliverables and expected outcomes should be clear, and therefore we can consider what are the activities that perhaps we cannot achieve this year and therefore can be achieved in a future edition of IGF. So I think that will be more realistic. And of course, I second what Amrita said. The MAC has the capacity to do so much more than just to review the proposals for the sessions of IGF. I myself would like to volunteer to help the chair and the secretariat however I can to help deliver on some of these commitments. I believe that we can do so much more. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Angela. Thank you. I hear you're volunteering to help us with this, and I appreciate very much the can-do attitude that MAG 2026 members are showing. Next, I'm going to go to the queue in the room. I see Taiwo. Taiwo, the floor is now yours.
Right, and thank you so much, Chair. I'm really happy to be in the room where all these important conversations are happening. I represent the government, particularly the Nigerian government. I am a public prosecutor, and my work cuts across digital governance, cybersecurity, also education within that context. And my recommendation, especially as we go on and considering what to prioritize for the conference, really cuts across what Dr. Gupta and Peace have said. And it's really about participation. It's great that we're having this multi-stakeholder group and having all these conversations, but it's more about the quality of the conversations as well as what our outputs are coming out of them. So when we're done having these conversations, do we really possess the influence to be able to action them, to be able to see the change that we really want to see? And as we're looking forward to the conference, like I've been saying, one of our priorities should be about bringing government, actual policy enforcers on board, because while the parliamentary track is a great way to go about it, so much improvement and all of that, it's also important for us to know that government goes beyond just lawmaking. There's also the enforcement aspect, which is where I come in. And if we're not having this key stakeholders, at the table, listening and participating, then there's a gap, that we're feeling to cover. Because now that we've had the conversations, also one important point I should make is government, especially the parts that I've described, do not like when ideas are foisted upon them. In the law enforcement sector, for instance, it's important to be invited as collaborators, co-creators, as opposed to just being listening in on the conversation and having recommendations foisted upon you. And so when you feel like you're part of the ideation and all of that and everything that goes into it, you are more likely to listen when recommendations are made. And what Dr. Gupta said about policies, pages of policy papers and all of that, I would say that's a great way to go. But also we should consider reducing the volume, because we'd rather look at 2 pages of a policy brief than 50 pages, right? And we should be more action-driven in our recommendations. I believe that a country like Brazil, the United States, would be more keen to look at, this is what this country has done, and this is the solution, this is the challenge that they've had to battle with, and this is how they went about resolving it, than just, recommendations off the top of people's minds. We're more, governments are more keen and more likely to look at case studies as opposed to just, frameworks and all of that. So that's my recommendation going forward. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Taiwo. I'm always astonished at the richness of expertise we have around the table in our MAG cohort as well. So we absolutely will be leaning on you, Taiwo, for your expertise, especially with I guess, the law enforcement arena. And considering, of course, I think we had very good discussion earlier as well about what it actually means for government dialogue with stakeholders, right? Not just one particular branch of the government, the whole of government approach, and also looking at other things. One thing that you brought out was very important, important and was highlighted in many different interventions is collaboration, co-creation, dialogue at the table, not any decisions foisted upon any set of the community, but IGF is the platform to be able to generate discussion, to generate this co-creation. So I think this is something that we should think very, very clearly about when we build the agenda for this meeting. Thank you very much. I now see there's two hands in the room. First, I will give the floor to Miret Woodmatas. You have the floor.
Thank you very much, Chair. I just want to add my voice on the strengthening of the cascading of the NRI to the global level, which will be actually very important also from two perspectives. One from bottom to up, and then from up to down. So when we strengthen this linkage between the national, regional, and continental to global level, it will also help us to track what has been implemented, because at the end of the day, we are trying to see impact at the community level. So if you are going to look at the community level and then cascading those steps will be very, very crucial. So that means like looking for support for those who needs to be supported. And then having, we heard a lot about impact. And then that impact, we can only see it when we cascade it to the community level. So the involvement of decision makers here is very important. So we can have a very good discussions. We can have a very good proposals on the way forward. If that is not, converted to practical implementation on the ground, then that will be then difficult to measure the impact. So then in the remaining few months of this cycle, maybe instead of having a lot of things, just prioritize one or two, but that shouldn't be also completed this year. This year, maybe one or two activities or three core activities that can be accomplished, maybe 20%, on the remaining 70 or 50% may go to the next year. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Miret, for your interventions. Very important points. You know, the learnings cascading up, down, in all the directions is very important in the IGF ecosystem. Thank you for highlighting the very important work that the NRI's network will have been doing, continue to do, and we'll hear an update from Anya, who's our focal point tomorrow, about all the good work there. One thing that I missed in my response to Taiwo is we also need to think about the format of the outputs coming out of IGF. If we want the intended audience to take it in, we need to create them in the format those audiences will take in, 2-pagers or something like that, because decision makers do not read a 50-page brief. They do read a page and a half or 2 pages, and we need to highlight that if we need to create that impact, which Mithras also highlighted, the actual impact we need to make sure we have. So now I have Wolfgang in the queue, and then I also see the flag up in the room for Kenya IGF. First, the floor goes to Wolfgang. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jennifer. And I can only support what you have said just now on the conditions under which the audience is reading it and taken into account. And I also want to support your idea of enhanced cooperation, collaboration among the various elements. And here I have a proposal to think about to institutionalize this networking by the introduction of liaisons. You know, I mentioned it already earlier today in the chat, and we had this discussion at Eurodic in Brussels, where we discussed the relationship between the internet governance and AI governance. And we have now like a multi-stakeholder group for the AI governance. The panel with 40 people, we have the MAG with 40 people, and it would make sense to link the two discussion platforms by liaisons. We have within ICANN very good experiences with liaisons, and so that the ALAC and the GNSO and the GAC, and so they all exchange liaisons. And the liaisons are a safeguard that you have certain coherence in the processes. You can learn from each other, not by intervening into the process of others, but to know what's going on there. And so my concrete proposal is to think about what would be the relevant partners where we would send liaisons from the MAC to these partners, and we would encourage them to send liaisons to the MAC, which would be very beneficial for the MAC. Thank you very much.
Wolfgang, can you just give me an example of the organizations you're saying we should send liaisons to? There's some confusion here.
Yeah, so I mentioned we have in the at-large advisory committee.
We understand the example, but you're saying that the
Okay.
IGF should send liaisons to the scientific panel to what exactly?
I could also imagine we have a best practice forum on cybersecurity. Why not to send a liaison to the global mechanism on cybersecurity, which was established just now? So also the Human Rights Council, has as observers non-governmental stakeholders which can follow the discussion. So and have also a speaking right sometimes. So the Human Rights Council could be such a body. So we could nominate also liaisons which have a look into what UNESCO, UNTP, and ITU is doing within the action line. So we could nominate observers where it makes sense to the various action lines. So the first proposal was to have a liaison to the AI panel, because this is very natural for the body here, for the people body here and for the people body here. So that would make easy to agree and to discuss it in July, now when they have the first global dialogue. But this system of liaisons could be further extended, because I think it makes sense. So the IGF is not, it is the preliminary point, but not the central point. It does not centralize discussion on all internet governance issues, but it has to be connected to all these other processes.
Okay, sorry, bear with me here a little bit. For instance, if we send a liaison to the governance board, don't they have to accept our liaisons, or these unofficial people that are going there to monitor what's going on? Because then it needs to be a liaison, and they would have to accept IGF MAG liaisons. And why IGF MAG liaisons instead of others? We have other structures like UNGUS. We have other ways where we do cooperate within the UN system with these bodies. So, and then I'm just thinking out loud here. My second choice, as we've said, we've got 5 months to prepare for the IGF. Is it real? Should we be sending MAG members, and specifically MAG members, to these organizations and to these meetings? And why would they accept only MAG members? If they accept us as liaisons, they have to accept everybody else. So it gets kind of complicated, if you see what I mean.
Think that we are now a permanent body, and we have to think only from one IGF to the next IGF. And the market is not only for 1 year planning. So my understanding from the recommendation from the executive meeting in New York is we have to think in broader cycles. So that means let's make a plan for the next 5 years, and to say these are the 3, 4, 5 organizations. Then we could write a letter to them for acceptance letter, and we would invite them to send delegates to the IGF, so that we create really a network of liaisons, so that this would be an instrument to avoid fragmentation of discussion places, and would guarantee more coherence in the global debate, because as we know, everything is linked with everything. And
I understand. Yeah, I'm getting a grasp of it now. Sorry, I was just trying to catch up. Thank you. So it's not for immediate action now. It is for something that we can do in our 5-year plan, in our 3-year plan that we were talking about in the EGM. We'll take a look at it. We'll consult with DESA, we'll consult with the other organizations to see what the feasibility is, and then we'll come back to you. But again, as I understand it now, it's for our long-term planning, which, you know, there's nothing wrong with that.
Thank you, Wolfgang, and thank you, Chengetai, for that very important, I guess, dialogue about how we connect. So maybe not identifying exactly what it is, but how different of parts of the institution can connect. So I think that is a long-term goal for us. I have 2 hands raised in the room, and I have one in the Zoom room. We have 4 minutes left, so let's be kind to each other. And we will try to end on time and give me at least 1 minute to try to wrap. So everybody gets a minute and be good with your minutes. First, I'll go to Kenya IGF, and then I'll go to I don't see your flag. I'll go to you in the room, and then Saba, you have the last word. So Kenya IGF, please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair and the Secretariat. First of all, I congratulate you guys for the wonderful job you've done so far. I'll be very quick. I want to raise 2 issues, especially in regards to participation and engagement. As much as we are discussing in terms of us and the global body and what other UN bodies normally do, I think we need to consider the fact that IGF is a multi-stakeholder body, and we need to consider everybody in that body. Because for youth and children, which I love that they were part of today's engagement, will they be able to read a 2-page or a 10-page report? They might, but how many are interested in doing that? And when we're talking about multi-stakeholder, are we also considering that some people, multi-stakeholder means kids in Turkana, kids in other regions that are not able to access such information? So my request is, let's also look at how we can get the information closer to them. After the IGF meeting, can we look at unique ways, because we're a very unique organization? Can we use social media? Can we use Reels to explain what has been discussed? The best way to reach them, such that people understand, okay, this was discussed at a high level. This is what it means to me as a 15-year-old in Nairobi, as a 12-year-old in South Africa. So that is a request from my end. The other suggestion, and it is in line with what was spoken at the beginning, I feel the first speaker raised a very important issue where we can't do everything during the IGF in December. So could we look at high-level discussions that can trickle down to the following years? Like, I'll give you an example. For AI, I usually have an issue when we talk about governing AI, when we haven't really sat down and discussed what do we want to get out of artificial intelligence. To me, it's a tool, and a tool can either be used to build or damage. The question is, what was the intended purpose? So if the end goal is to govern it, have we discussed what we want to get out of artificial intelligence as human beings, not just as countries or various organizations? And I believe being a multi-stakeholder organization, we're the best fit to have these discussions that eventually we can push to other institutions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kenya IGF. I'm also hearing willingness to thread the local with the global. So we're leaning on your expertise too, to let us know what the impact is, the messaging that will be most impactful, especially starting here in Kenya. So thank you very much for your very considered input. Now I go over to...
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Madam Chair, for giving me the floor. This is Saleh from Permanent Mission of Iran. I'm representing the Ministry of ICT of Iran in this valued meeting. First of all, let me to appreciate all of the interventions. It was a very informative for me, informative meetings for me from today morning. Normally, diplomats are generalists, but for me, it was very informative to learn a lot about the different concerns. You know, as I am thinking about this issue, access to internet is the public goods that the government has some responsibilities to provide to all civil societies, private sectors, and all. And from other sides, this is the necessary for the stakeholders in the private sectors, children's families, all. I think the regulation is inevitable things in this regard, especially for the children. We had good interventions by the children. That was very interesting for me. Firstly, I wanted to mention the importance of the regulation by the governments. Let me to mention that points that the IGF is a very good platform for the negotiation. And when we are talking about the multi-stakeholders, especially in the field of internet and the AI and others, a vast range of the stakeholders, we are talking about that. And the governments and the parliament members, and they are important. And when we are talking about the governments, the points of views of them are not unified. They are not integrated views. I wanted to advise, or maybe let me to suggest the colleagues that take this mission as a long-term mission, permanent mission. This negotiation should be permanent between the different stakeholders, government, private sectors, civil societies, and the others. And I wanted to give some samples about the other issues in the United Nations negotiations. We have another negotiations for the convention for tax cooperation between the different stakeholders, private sectors, public sectors. For example, some companies working in the different countries, multinational companies. I wanted to borrow this intuition from the INC tax and suggest that take it a long-term mission and don't be in rush or maybe in hurry to finalize some things or documents. That's all. Thank you for the time.
Thank you very much, Iran, for a very considered input. Thank you for reminding us, of course, again, for governments themselves, that's not a homogenous group either. There's a lot of diversity in the views, and there's a lot of aspects that we need to consider as well. And of course, IGF is multi-stakeholder, and we welcome all of the views there, and it's a very important platform for us to have these discussions there as well. I think we have our last hand in the room. So Saba, you have the distinction of having the last word before we wrap. Saba, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Chair. My name is Saba, MAG member from the Technical Community Stakeholder Group. My comment or contribution is actually building upon what Amrita suggested earlier, which is around sustainability of the existing activities within the IGF. And this leads me to the EGM meeting report, and specifically on the second section on 4. Second section 4, which is on around 3-year planning cycle. I find this proposal very interesting, and particularly because many digital governance challenges, and specifically areas around AI governance, cybersecurity, data governance, they actually require a sustained engagement rather than a one-year alone kind of discussion or engagement. And so a multi-year approach actually could support a deeper community engagement, as well as allow outputs to also mature over time. And at the same time, we should also maintain some level of flexibility in order to respond to the emerging issues that actually, or that may require our urgent or as well as our rapid attention. And I would very much suggest for the MAG to take a look into this in the coming 2 days. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Saba. Indeed, the recommendations coming out of the EGM report do emphasize multi-year planning cycles. We do have an agenda item on day 3 where we can take a look at that further. Now I'll wrap. I'm not going to attempt to summarize everything we've heard today. We'll have a fuller summary tomorrow when we see if there are areas of convergence, and thank the Secretariat in advance for the preparation there. I know we had very good dialogue and discussion with our host country co-chair when we looked at overarching themes. We looked at a lot of the input. We tried our best to prioritize a lot of the community input. I'm very thankful that many of them have stayed online in very difficult time zones, from very, very early in the Americas to very, very late in Asia Pacific. So I appreciate very much that continued engagement. Reminder for MAG members tomorrow, the MAG meeting starts in earnest. Non-MAG members, of course, are welcome to contribute, but the priority will go to the MAG members first. We need to reach decisions on 2 very important things. First, the overarching theme we need to approve as MAG before we leave Nairobi, and also which session types. We've heard a little bit of discussion there about, being innovative but not too confusing. We need to thread the needle here as MAG and do our work well. And then, of course, we will be talking about our intersessional work that we will be approving, taking a look at that. And I encourage you to take a look at the background documents. Have a very good rest, relax tonight, prepare well, have a good dinner, have a good rest. There is now yes, I'm coming right to that. Olaf, you've predated my brain. We will be meeting here bright and early, 9:30 in this room. So see you all in this room and also online. There seems to be a question. There's a question. Yes.
Just a perspective. Chair, I don't know if you know, tomorrow we have something that we call Maandamano in Kenya. So just in case you don't see the Kenyans coming in and they'll join you virtually, just know that we'll be exercising our democratic right tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody. Great session.